Mesdames et messieurs, bonjour. Je tiens vraiment à vous remercier d'avoir répondu si nombreux à cette invitation. Veuillez m'excuser tout d'abord si je lis. Vous pouvez vous imaginer que c'est un exercice difficile pour moi d'être devant vous et de pouvoir m'exprimer sur le décès de mon mari. En vous faisant venir aujourd'hui, je me lance dans un combat difficile qui promet d'être long. Je m'appelle Nadege, je suis française et je suis l'épouse de Jonathan Seex, qui lui était suédois et kényan. Nous avons 3 enfants, Alexandre, 10 ans, Antoine, 8 ans, et Adeline, 7 ans. Mon mari faisait partie des 157 passagers du vol Ethiopian Airlines 302. Le choc de cette nouvelle est indescriptible et nous a déchiré le cœur. Nous sommes ravagés par la peine et la souffrance de la perte de notre être aimé et adoré. Nous sommes en colère face à l'impensable, face à l'injustice, face à l'inacceptable et l'impunité dont ont bénéficié à ce jour les responsables de cette catastrophe. Nous sommes perdus face à l'incompréhension, aux interrogations innombrables. Comment une telle chose a-t-elle pu se produire? Comment a-t-on pu laisser se produire un drame qui était par définition évitable lorsqu'il s'est déjà produit 5 mois auparavant, faisant 189 morts sur le vol de Lion Air? Comment a-t-on pu rester sourd à toutes les inquiétudes remontées et problèmes connus avant ces 2 accidents? Jonathan nous a quittés en prenant ce vol de l'infamie. Il était un père aimant, un mari attentionné, un fils adoré, un dirigeant de société talentueux et respecté, un ami fidèle, un confident irremplaçable. C'était un homme exceptionnel. Jonathan avait 45 ans, il était plein d'avenir, d'amour et de projets pour sa famille, pour son entreprise et ses employés pour le reste de sa vie. Sa vie a été prise, ôtée, sciemment, sinon délibérément, en connaissance de cause. Boeing a agi avec cynisme. Il connaissait le problème. Mon mari est la victime collatérale d'un système, d'une stratégie et d'une décision d'entreprise. Ces personnes ont fait le choix de ne pas prendre les mesures de sécurité qui s'imposaient, alors que ces mêmes dispositifs de sécurité engageaient directement les conditions de vol et donc engageaient directement la confiance et la vie de leurs passagers et de leurs employés. Et ceci au-delà de tout le secteur aérien. Ils ont trahi notre confiance. Ils ont pris la vie de nos êtres chers et ont plongé nos familles dans le désarroi, le désespoir, la souffrance, la colère et l'incompréhension. Ce sont 157 victimes qui n'auraient jamais dû mourir. 157 morts qui auraient pu et dû être évitées. Nous ne devrions pas avoir à pleurer nos proches aujourd'hui et à vivre le reste de nos jours remplis de leur insupportable absence. Au nom de mon mari Jonathan, père de nos 3 jeunes enfants, je poursuis en justice Boeing. l'une des plus puissantes et influentes multinationales au monde. C'est un combat entre Goliath dans lequel je m'engage et que je n'arrêterai pas que lorsque justice sera faite. Je souhaite remercier la formidable mobilisation des organisations et l'ensemble des personnes qui nous accompagnent depuis ce 10 mars fatidique. Le ministère des Affaires étrangères, le ministère de la Justice, les coordinateurs nationaux et interministériels, Monsieur le procureur de la République, les juges en charge, le BEA, Interpol, la Fédération et Association des victimes. Leur soutien est essentiel et vital pour nous. Mesdames et messieurs les journalistes, relayez notre souffrance et nos appels. Veillez à ce que notre famille, comme toutes les autres victimes de cette catastrophe aérienne, ne soit pas broyée par le système et les puissants Goliaths. Aidez-nous, je vous en supplie, à ce que la vérité soit faite, à ce que la justice soit rendue. À ce que toutes les responsabilités soient établies, que la mémoire des victimes soit honorée, la souffrance des familles respectée et que ces mêmes familles puissent vivre et faire leur deuil de l'impensable dans la dignité. Aidez-nous pour que jamais une telle catastrophe ne se reproduise. Que jamais nous n'ayons à pleurer de nouveaux décès sacrifiés sur l'autel du profit, de la cupidité et surtout de la négligence de certains. Il n'y avait pas de fatalité ce jour-là. C'est le combat que je mène pour Jonathan et nos enfants. Que Dieu nous protège, qu'il nous donne la force de mener le combat que Boeing nous force aujourd'hui à mener. Nous demandons simplement justice pour nos proches. Je vous remercie pour votre écoute. J'aimerais maintenant introduire mes avocats, M. Noman Husain, M. Omar Kawaja et Mr. Floyd, Maître Floyd Wisner, et n'est pas là aujourd'hui, il est à Chicago. J'ai rencontré mes avocats que j'ai sélectionnés à Nairobi lorsqu'ils faisaient une conférence de presse. C'est moi qui les ai abordés au préalable. Et après avoir fait pas mal de recherches, nous avons décidé de prendre M. Husain pour nous représenter. Nomi.
Good morning. Nadege, Britt, it's an honor to represent your family. I'm so sorry for your loss. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nomi Husain, and I, along with Omar Khwaja and Floyd Weissner, represent victims and their family members who perished on Ethiopian Flight 302. Ethiopian Flight 302 was a flight that consisted of exceptional people, leaders of their family, leaders of industry, leaders of business, leaders of charitable organizations, leaders in the field of education, and leaders from the United Nations. Out of respect for those families who lost loved ones on this fateful flight, I would just like to take a few moments of silence. In my 20 years of representing victims and victims' families against corporations, I have never seen such an example of greed and egregious conduct. The Boeing 737 MAX, as our complaint outlines, has been the best-selling plane in the history of Boeing Corporation. And how was Boeing able to sell so many of these planes? A plane for which they have 5,000 orders, a plane that sells for a list price of $120 million. They were able to sell so many of these planes to their customers, the airlines around the world, by promising double-digit fuel savings. And how was Boeing able to deliver on this promise of double-digit fuel savings? By attaching bigger engines to the wings of a 737. But by attaching these bigger engines to the wings of a 737, Boeing unintentionally changed the flight characteristics of the 737 MAX. Shortly after starting delivery of the 737 MAX to its customers, the airlines around the world, in May 2017, Boeing began to receive complaints about the flight characteristics of this plane. Boeing chose to ignore these complaints and continue to aggressively market the 737 MAX. Then, in October of last year, October 28th, when Lion Air 610 crashed 11 minutes after taking off from Jakarta International Airport, did Boeing at that time step up and acknowledge that they were aware of issues with the flight characteristics of the 737 MAX? Did they step up at that time and acknowledge that they were aware of problems with the angle of attack sensors on the plane? At that time, did they step up and say they are aware of the MCAS software issues on this plane? No, they did none of those things. Boeing did the same thing it does anytime one of its planes crashes. It blames the pilot, and that's what they did after the Lion Air crash. They blamed the pilot. Boeing did not acknowledge any of the issues with the plane. In fact, they did the opposite. They continued to represent to the airlines, to the governments, and to the flying public that the Boeing 737 MAX was the safest plane they ever made and that we should continue to buy it and use it. And then 5 months later, on March 10, 2019, when Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 slammed into the earth at almost 700 miles per hour, did Boeing at that time acknowledge that they're aware with issues with the flight characteristics of this plane, issues with the angle of attack sensors of this plane, issues with the MCAS software of this plane? No, Boeing did none of that. As the world was racing to ground the entire 737 MAX fleet, what did Boeing do? Boeing's CEO got on the phone with the President of the United States and told him that the Boeing 737 MAX was the safest plane Boeing ever made, and there's nothing wrong with it. And as a result of that conversation, the American public, for the next 4 days, March 10th, March 11th, March 12th, and March 13th, continued to fly on an unsafe plane. Finally, in light of overwhelming evidence, on March 13th, the FAA was left with no alternative but to join the rest of the world and ground the 737 MAX, which they did. In the weeks following the Ethiopian crash, as more evidence came to light, Boeing was forced to acknowledge through its CEO that they were aware of the MCAS software issues, and the MCAS software caused both planes to crash, the Ethiopian flight and the Lion Air crash. Boeing CEO says that they were aware of the problem, that they know how to fix it, and that they own it. And then he apologized. Well, you know what? I'm sorry is not going to bring Jonathan back to his family. I'm sorry is not going to bring back the other 156 passengers who lost their lives. I'm sorry is not going to repair the shattered lives of all those family members whose loved ones perished on March 10, 2019. Our clients, including Nadege, have hired us for 2 reasons. One is to investigate and determine why this happened, and 2, to hold Boeing accountable for its greed, reckless, and wrongful conduct. As we sit with Nadege and her family and learn about Jonathan, and as we sit with our other clients to learn about their loved ones who lost their lives on this flight, there's one overarching premise there, one overarching question that we are asked by all the families that we represent. Despite their grief anger, and shock, they all ask the same thing. What can we do to prevent another family from having to go through what we are going through? What can we do to prevent Boeing from acting in this way again? What can we do? And the answer to that question lies in the complaint that we filed on behalf of Jonathan's family. We have asked the jury in the United States of America, after considering all of the evidence, after considering Boeing's reckless and willful actions in which it consciously disregarded the safety of its passengers, to award a minimum in the form of a punishment to Boeing, $276 million. How do we arrive at this figure? In 2018, Boeing grossed $101 billion. When you take that figure and you divide it by 365, you arrive at the figure of $276 million. In order for punishment to deter future behavior, it must be swift, it must be certain, and it must be severe. Is 1 day's worth of gross receipts by Boeing severe enough to deter future behavior? The average American makes $61,000 a year. Their average daily rate is $167. So is fining someone $167 enough to deter their future behavior? Or is it 1 week's worth of wages, or 1 month, or 1 year? That's going to be for the jury to decide. But we believe that they should start at 1 day's worth of gross receipts. We cannot put a price on human life, but Boeing did just that. Boeing made the business decision to continue to market, sell, and deliver a plane they knew was unsafe, a plane they knew had complaints about it. In fact, there were over 200 complaints to the FAA about the flight characteristics of the 737 MAX by pilots who were actually flying the plane. Many of those complaints allege that the plane unexpectedly pitched nose down. We also know that Boeing was aware of issues with the MCAS software, the angle of attack sensors, and now we know that Boeing was also aware of issues with the flight simulator training it was offering to the pilots who were going to be flying the 73 MAX plane. Did Boeing do anything to address any of these complaints? No. They continued to aggressively market and sell this plane. Even after the Lion Air crash, when Boeing knew, probably before anybody else, that the MCAS software contributed or caused that crash, did Boeing step up at that time and acknowledge problems? Even after pilots who were flying the 737 MAX plane confronted Boeing executives after the crash and begged them to correct the MCAS software, did Boeing at that time do anything? No, because Boeing wanted to protect its profits. Boeing didn't want to do anything to jeopardize the sale of the 737 MAX plane, which is the best-selling plane in the history of the company. In fact, in the 5 months between the Lion Air crash on October 28, 2018, and the Ethiopian crash on March 10, 2019, Boeing received an additional order of 248 737 MAX planes for an average profit of $15 million per plane, with a net profit on the total sale of $3.7 billion. This is just in the time period between the two crashes. Sadly, the plane that Jonathan Seex was on was delivered to Ethiopian Airlines after the Lion Air crash in November of 2018. This was a 737 MAX plane with the same defective MCAS software, which Boeing to this day is still not been able to fix, with the same issue with the flight characteristics and the same problems with the angle of attack sensors. If Boeing, after the Lion Air crash, had done the right thing and put safety first and profit second, Ethiopian Airlines would have never received that 737 MAX plane, and Nadege Dubois-Seex and Britt would be at home with Jonathan and their 3 kids instead of sitting before you here today. But unfortunately, Boeing decided to put profit first and safety last. Boeing made a business decision, and what I mean by that is people at Boeing made a calculated decision to continue to sell this unsafe plane because they decided, and we will discover who those people are through the American discovery process, they decided that it would be cheaper or more economically beneficial for Boeing to continue to sell this plane that was hugely profitable to the corporation. And if another plane were to crash, they would just pay the victims. They put a very cheap price on human life so that they could continue to sell this plane, the Boeing 737 MAX. This is an issue of public safety and public trust. Nadege lost her husband Jonathan as a result of Boeing's greed and reckless conduct, Boeing's willful decisions and actions, and Boeing's decision to consciously disregard passenger safety. Next time, it will be someone else's husband or wife or family member, friend or coworker. We all fly. We have no option. But when we step onto a Boeing plane, we as passengers should have confidence that Boeing has placed our safety above all else. That is of utmost importance to Boeing. They should not be hiding anything from us, and they should do everything possible for safety to prevail. When safety and profit come into conflict, safety wins, not profit. In this particular case, the evidence will clearly show Boeing put profits first and safety last. We believe that a jury in the United States of America, after considering all of the evidence and Boeing's reckless and willful actions in which it put profit over safety, will hold Boeing accountable and send a message to Boeing and all other corporations that when you put profit over safety, you will be punished. Those are my comments at this time. I have the honor of introducing the mother of Jonathan, Britt, who has joined us today from Stockholm, Sweden. So Britt, you can speak from a seated position, or if you want to come up here, it's your choice.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I'll be speaking English as well. Jonathan was my son for 45 years. He was born in Kenya, but he was raised in Sweden together with his sister, Joanna. He was a son to be very proud of. As a boy, he was kind and generous, and as an adult, his caring nature was well known to all his friends and all his staff. He was always there for us, whether he was in Kenya, Sweden, or France. Jonathan had a strong commitment to the environment. Just before the tragic accident, he was organizing a cycling event in Kenya from Nairobi to Mombasa. That's a 7-day event over 500 kilometers. The proceeds from this charity event will be a contribution to keeping waterways and the ocean free of rubbish, to keep it clean. This was very close to Jonathan's heart. This cycling event will now be held in Jonathan's honor. Jonathan was in the middle of his life. He had so much more to give. For my family and 156 other families, it's too late. This will haunt us for the rest of our lives. But I hope that many of the bereaved families in different countries will join forces with us and demand justice, so that such a tragic and unnecessary accident will not happen again. Thank you.
Mesdames et messieurs, aujourd'hui est une étape importante pour ma famille et pour moi-même. J'ai pleinement conscience du long combat qui s'ouvre devant nous. Je sais pouvoir compter sur le soutien de l'ensemble des familles de victimes avec lesquelles nous sommes en train de constituer une association de défense. Si ma démarche aujourd'hui est individuelle, le soutien de ce collectif est essentiel pour toutes les familles. Je remercie aujourd'hui certains de leurs représentants d'être présents pour m'assurer de leur soutien et de leur amitié.
So now we're happy to take any questions from the press.